After the war, Ross learned from the POWs that his 3-year effort of pressure on the North Vietnamese significantly improved the treatment the Americans received. Ross purposely avoided the homecoming when the prisoners were released in 1973.
I didn't want to be there because I wanted them to see their families. And there was one particular family where the mother had come to me with a little baby in her arms and saying, this little baby doesn't know whether his father is dead or alive. We beat the dickens out of those guys for 90 days over Jerry Singleton, and they admitted they had him. Then they had to keep him alive. And everybody wanted me to see this little boy, who is now, say 5 or 6 years old, see his dad when he got off the airplane. And I said, no, I don't want to be there because his dad's not interested in seeing me, he's interested in seeing the family. But I asked the press to get me a picture of him, and one of my most treasured possessions is this little boy. Boy, his eyes are lighted up, he's pointing at his dad. And another treasured possession is a photograph of the two of them together that they sent me shortly after he came home, saying, thanks for making this picture possible.
On their return, Ross Perot arranged for the POWs to meet in San Francisco with troops who risked their lives on a rescue mission at Son Tay prison camp outside Hanoi. And he pledged himself to a statesman's goal.
First commit the nation, then commit the troops, and then after the war you honor your heroes. Abraham Lincoln said, any nation that does not honor its heroes will not long endure.
The war began a lifelong bond between the soldiers who were mistreated by their own country and the man who refused to allow it. Among them, a South Vietnamese fighter pilot imprisoned alongside the Americans, Nguyen Dat.
Sometimes it was so easy to kill, but it was very, very difficult to save a life. And not only Ross saved my life, but he saved also the life of 17 other members of my family. And we all are very grateful for what he did for us.
Ross exhibited his depth of commitment when revolutionaries in Iran ousted the Shah and took 2 EDS employees hostage. They were being held to keep the Iranian government's computers running during the revolution.
I knew them, I knew their wives, I knew their children. They were like members of my family. And suddenly they were put in a terrible situation where literally their lives were at risk at all times.
Ross refused to sit on the sidelines and wait while his friends sat in an Iranian jail. The U.S. government could not help, so he formed a rescue team made up of EDS employees who had combat experience in Vietnam. He went to visit his mother, who was hospitalized with cancer, to tell her what he was going to do.
When I finished explaining, she said, son, these are your men. You sent them over there. They didn't do anything wrong. It's your responsibility to get them out.
The rescue team was led by a war hero, Colonel Arthur Simons, and Ross insisted on going himself. He was not about to ask others to risk their lives without risking his own.
I went into Iran, went into the prison, visited with Paul and Bill in prison, briefed them on the fact that we had the rescue team in place.
If he had been recognized, Ross could have been imprisoned or killed, but he got out of Iran and went to Turkey to wait for the rescue team.
Colonel Simons and his team did a brilliant job, brought them out 540 miles overland in Iran, then into Turkey. And then we picked them up in eastern Turkey and came on home.
After the team was safely home, author Ken Follett chronicled their real-life triumph in the bestseller On Wings of Eagles. In 1986, Ross sold the company he created to General Motors. 2 years later, he started a new company, Perot Systems. In its first 7 years, Perot Systems grew to 25 times the size of EDS when it was 7 years old. Ross Perot has never sought public recognition, yet he has received more than 45 public service and business awards. Ross was the first recipient of the Raoul Wallenberg Award, given for devotion and strength of commitment. In 1986, he became the third recipient of the Winston Churchill Award, the first businessman to receive the honor later given to President Reagan. He has been asked to take on the toughest problems, chairing task forces on everything from drug abuse to education. He served on the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board, a position which requires the nation's highest security clearance, and was appointed by the President as chairman of the U.S. Naval Academy Board of Visitors. But Ross is proudest of his family. He and Margot have 5 children, 1 son and 4 daughters, and 10 grandchildren. He defines his success through them.
After EDS was successful, I was asked, how did it feel to be successful? And I responded that I will not feel successful until my children are grown, until they're good citizens with a deep concern for other people, and they do something about that concern. Then I will feel successful. Well, I feel like a really big success now because they're all grown, they're all too good to be true. Margot was an incredible mother, and they are just as good as gold. I have nothing but happy memories of their childhood. I certainly miss having them here all the time, but they are as close to perfect as human beings could be, and we are so proud of them, and that I consider our greatest success, and Margot deserves most of the credit.
Ross Perot's commitment to others extends far beyond his friends and family. He believes in helping others and living by example.
I was taught to do that from childhood. I followed my parents' example. I've seen my father do it 1,000 times with money he didn't have, my mother do it again and again and again with things she didn't have to share. And I was just taught that from infancy, literally, to do that.
When his first company, EDS, went public, Ross received $5 million and did something unusual. He gave half of it away within 60 days.
The Dallas Public Schools approached me about funding a special school for very poor children where the children would start when they were 2 or 3 years old, and they would go to school year-round, they would have breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the school, get all kinds of special attention. This seemed like a great idea to me, and I did it.
Ross contributed to the Dallas Symphony Hall and the Dallas Museum. He supports the Boy Scouts. He was himself an Eagle Scout. And he and his wife Margot are totally focused on helping people in need. Time and time again, Ross has come to the aid of people he has never met, like Sergeant David Campbell.
I was in such pain on my left side that I couldn't really move as much as I tried to. And my left arm was not laying beside me where it should have been.
Sergeant David Campbell was severely injured in a Scud missile attack during Operation Desert Storm, and Ross arranged emergency medical care at the request of Campbell's wife, Gail.
When I think of Mr. Perot, I get very emotional. I have a lot of feelings for this man, and I just know in my heart that my husband is alive today because of him.
In 1992, Ross Perot was asked to take on an unprecedented challenge. And like so many other times in his life, he stepped up. Ross took on the challenge of campaigning for the presidency as an independent candidate to try and take back control of the country from the special interests and return it to the people. He focused the campaign agenda on government debt and the rising federal deficit. He was propelled into the '92 presidential debates, and he won those debates.
I was speaking from the heart. I was saying what I believed. I had not been briefed. I had not been rehearsed for 3 days. It was fascinating to see it up close. The other 2 candidates spent the whole afternoon on stage checking their suits, checking their ties, checking their shirts.
In an extraordinary show of support, Ross received more than 19 million votes in the '92 election. And polls after the election indicated that 40% of the voters would have voted for Ross Perot.
Then they asked the very rational question, then why didn't you vote your conscience? And they said, we were told again and again and again, don't waste your vote on Perot. And we didn't want to waste our vote. We wanted to vote for a winner.